Rupert Murdoch, he's stepping down. He said he's not totally out of the picture. He's just no longer official. But he eats, sleeps, and breathes news, apparently, so he's still going to be involved. Look, he's 92 years old, and we talk about the president being so old, and like this guy is that much older, right? And so he kind of, in my estimation, has made some very, very badly calculated moves. In other words, the judgment is not entirely there. I mean, you might say, why the heck is a company that built itself around Tucker Carlson getting rid of Tucker Carlson, right? Like maybe that's kind of an obvious one. But there's other stuff. For example, during his testimony that he was giving during that Dominion lawsuit, and don't forget what's coming up, Smartmatic, he tried to pretend with the lawyers that he wasn't involved in the daily business of the company. Well, that became kind of a big deal in the case. And eventually his lawyers had to apologize to the judge and to the other side because it turns out that, Rupert was heavily, heavily involved in all of the news production, which, I worked there, 5 years. I mean, I can tell you he was most certainly. I mean, it was always an edict. Rupert wants this, Rupert wants that. So the whole idea that he didn't know what was going on, that was totally bogus. And so it was just flat out lying to the judge, and the lawyers wound up getting in some trouble for that. But the other thing that he did was he meandered in his testimony, and he sat there and said, yeah, like maybe we should have done this. Maybe we should have done it. Maybe some of these hosts were a little out of control. So this all comes out. Can you imagine one of your PR? You feel for them, right? They're like, oh my goodness, what did he say? And two, if you're the other side, if you're Dominion, you're like, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Another really, really bad idea that Rupert had was somehow he thought he could settle this in the beginning for $50 million. Like a company said, wait a second, we've been totally defamed. We have no future. We used to sell our things all around the world. We can't get clients now because you have dragged our name through the mud. And he thought, no big deal. And even though some people said, you might want to settle this, my estimation is, you know what, you settle it, or you ride that one all the way and you don't give up. Because, by the way, it's totally bad precedent for journalists in general to be giving up on that. Anyway, he thought he could get away with $50 million and then go away, and that would be the end of it. That was not the case at all. So now you got Smartmatic that's suing for even more money. And what was Dominion? $1.6 billion? And Smartmatic is like 2 point something. So I think that this is very much a calculated move. Don't forget, like, he parts easily with people. It's very interesting because Fox News wasn't like that for a while. I mean, if you think about the leadership that it used to have, the old guard, when the place was run previously, they weren't just like, knocking people off left and right. And I think that really came from the management itself. And that would have been Roger Ailes. And of course, there's been a lot of bad stuff reported about him. And I'm not justifying that in any way, but I am telling you, the guy knew how to run a tight ship and knew how to protect producers and on-air people, clearly from the wrath of Murdoch, because Murdoch's like, yep, off with his head. At one point, according to the Michael Wolff book, which I do think Murdoch is trying to deflect from, he was like, okay, let's get rid of Hannity. Let me see if I can pull you these quotes from the book, because this is really quite something. This was something that The Guardian reported on. They had an excerpt of the book. I'm going to share this with you because it shows you that he was just willing to, just cut people loose very easily. People who helped build the network. You think about Sean Hannity, who was there from the very beginning. And he said, apparently, when Murdoch brought reports of Hannity's on and off-air defense of post-Fox election or post-election coverage, he perhaps seemed to justify his anchor by saying, quote, he's retarded like most Americans. Okay, so he doesn't respect the guy that's on the air. And here's the more important thing. He doesn't respect Americans. He's not American. I mean, maybe he is now because he got his green card, his passport, and all that good stuff. He's an immigrant himself, right? He started off in Australia and became a very big deal, took over his dad's newspaper, got into the tabloid business. Really, people are expendable. Think about what the tabloid business is, right? So he there was saying about Hannity, he's retarded like most Americans. This tells you what Rupert Murdoch thinks of Americans. And when you don't respect your audience, when you don't respect the people that love you, that have helped you build that network, you don't belong there. So I actually think that I think he fired himself. He fired himself. He's like, all right, let me see if I can actually change the headline on this one because this isn't good for me. Hey everyone, Trish Regan here. If you enjoyed that clip, please do me the favor of subscribing to the channel. Just hit that little subscribe button right over there. Did I do that right? Not quite, but you know where it is. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so that you get the alerts, and I'll see you back on the show.